It's Wednesday and it's time for Pop and Politics. We are talking about the latest in top hot topics, news and entertainment. I'm KJ and let me introduce you to my co-hosts. We have Shelly E, Yana, and Colleen. And you know what? It's the last Wednesday of the month. So tonight we have with us Tyrone Keys of Money Changes Everything, joining us at the top of the hour to talk about money, 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 money. So stay tuned for that. Join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, let's set it off. Starting right off at the top with Tyrone. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How y'all doing?
Doing great. How are you all doing, ladies?
Very good.
Good. So, Tyrone, what's going on with the American dollar?
Well, the Biden administration has decided to weaponize the dollar. And as a result, countries around the world are waking up and saying that they don't want their foreign policy controlled from Pennsylvania Avenue. They want to basically be able to control their own destinies, for better or for worse. So dollar hegemony is being questioned big time. And financial infrastructure that has been controlled by the West for pretty much the past century, that's starting to fracture. We're seeing the OPEC state of Saudi Arabia doing some of its oil transactions with China. They're talking about doing some of those in yuan. So, that would have an impact on the petrodollar, the United States dollar. And just last week, we saw Vladimir Putin say that he doesn't want to accept dollars for any of the natural resources that he's exporting out of Russia, that he will accept gold, he will accept Bitcoin, and he will accept rubles. So these are the consequences. So you've got people waking up, countries waking up to, the dollar and saying, I don't know if I want to continue to go that route 100%. Also, you have to factor into account the enormous debt that we have. That is also making the dollar look less and less attractive. We have the world's reserve currency. Reserve currencies come and go. And I predict that by the early 2030s, less than 50% of these international transactions will be made in dollars. Right now, it's about a little over 80%.
Wow. Okay. And one question. So you said the dollar is dying. What does that mean? And you said it's something that's irreversible. How does that affect everyday Americans?
Sure, that's a good question. And when I say it's dying, I don't mean that there's going to be a point in time where we no longer use the dollar. Take the British pound sterling. It's the oldest currency, followed by the ruble. The ruble is actually the second oldest currency. So those currencies have gone through their ups and downs. At one point, the British pound sterling was the world's reserve currency right before the dollar got it. And it's still in existence. So the dollar's not going to cease to exist. However, the things that we take for granted that allow us to do things like, have these long, protracted military engagements, for example, that's predicated in large part on the fact that we have the reserve currency and we can drive up these incredible debts. Another thing, when you talk about it coming home to the American people, of course, we've seen gas prices increase, and Biden even said we're going to be seeing food shortages. He's about 6 months behind. Money changes everything. We talked about that a long time ago. but also on a prolonged basis, you're going to have entitlement programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, either have to cut benefits, raise the retirement age, or eliminate benefits, or a combination of all three in some form or fashion. So these are the things that when you no longer have the reserve currency, you can't run a country in the way that we have been for so long.
All right, I want to go to you, Shelly. What are your thoughts? What is your question on this topic?
Yeah, so thanks, Tyrone. Good to see you again.
Good to
I
see you.
was thinking more on a transactional or practical level. So let's say, for instance, if you're traveling, how does this change now? Because now we can use the dollar pretty much anywhere, and pretty much in most Western countries, at least, you can use the dollar. So now, are we going to go back to how it was decades ago, where you had to have the currency of that country to do any kind of transactions while you're there?
Well, that recognizability and acceptability, I think what's going to happen is as central banks transition into central bank digital currencies, uh, actual hard cash is going to go the way of the dinosaur. So those exchanges will actually be a little bit more user friendly. A lot of people in other countries are very familiar with foreign exchange. In fact, uh, I read that in some places in Russia, folk were going to ATMs to withdraw currencies other than the ruble. So in different places in the world, there the ATMs are stocked with other forms of currency. Apparently, here in the United States, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be as familiar with foreign exchange because, again, we have the world's reserve currency. So I think that and I'm not really a fan of CBDCs or central bank digital currencies because they're going to do a number on privacy and freedom. But that piece, that exchange piece, will be cared for more by technology than us doing like calculations. I used to work in Paris for a little while in the late 90s, and I had to do the calculations. And I'm telling you, the French people that I interacted with, they probably loved me because I'm sure I always went over by tremendous amount, but it wasn't my money. I was on an expense account, so it wasn't that bad.
What are your thoughts, Yana? You're international. You've been traveling internationally. What are your thoughts on this? The
Well,
question.
my question is just since the dollar, as you were saying, Tyrone, since the dollar is losing its strength, which currency do you predict is going to become stronger, like the strongest in the world? What do you think?
Well, Jerome Powell over at the Federal Reserve was saying that the world is big enough for two reserve currencies. I take the inverse approach and say that, there could be a time where we go for a stretch without a quote unquote reserve currency, especially when you factor in that the petrodollar that came into existence to facilitate oil trades. And I don't see oil going anywhere, anytime soon. But it is no secret that most of the world is trying to glom onto this green agenda, where, we may see a decrease in oil transactions at some point. So I think that currencies are part of the problem because these fiat currencies, rather, where they're not backed by anything substantive. Okay, the U.S. dollar is backed by the full faith and credit that the United States can enforce its tax paying uh, authority. Nothing more than that. Um, so I think that we might see the yuan rise in prominence, but we may go for a stretch without a dominant reserve currency. The
And can
world
you,
has done that previously.
just for people who don't know, where is the yuan?
China, thank you. Yes, that's China's currency.
Right.
So
Okay.
without, does that mean like crypto or gold? What do you mean without currency?
Sure. Gold is a form of money.
Mhm.
It has an intrinsic value, whereas the dollar it has
It's an
a
agreement.
value,
Yeah.
but it's not intrinsic. So I think that we're going to probably see a variety of mediums of exchange, especially as we do more business with more places around the world, as more of us interact with one another. So sure, you could see a lot of transactions facilitated by various cryptos at some point. You could see that. I don't know how pervasive that will become, but the governments of the world are really trying to get into that space again with the CBDCs. So here locally, I think I talked with you all in a previous program about the relationships I'm building with some of the farms in my area, where a couple of them have agreed that, hey, we'll trade in silver because, we think alike. So locally, you might have that type of transaction going on. If you want to order something from the other side of the world, then of course, you may do maybe some sort of cryptocurrency or a somebody's central bank digital currency.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your thoughts? What's your question tonight, Colleen or Tyrone?
I honestly would like your thoughts on what you think is going to happen with the housing market, because since they raised the interest rates, a lot of people are going to say that they're going to lower home prices. But I mean, a lot of these buyers are paying cash or they're paying over the appraised price. So, I mean, I just had a record sale in my neighborhood for like way higher than I ever expected, and it was a cash sale. What are your thoughts, like, since they just raised the interest rates?
Well, raising the interest rate, of course, is going to decrease affordability. So folk will not be able to afford as much house as they may have prior to the interest rate increase. Um, will that slow the market? Yeah, it will a bit. But I think that there's some other factors at play that, will keep housing uh, kind of insulated. And then what you have to also realize is this: housing, people have a tendency to take a look at the housing market like they do maybe the stock market. So if I bought a share of Coca-Cola here in Baltimore at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, someone buys a share at that same time in Los Angeles, all things being equal, we're going to pay the same amount. But because stocks are a global market, but real estate is a hyper local market. So what I get for my home can be completely different from what someone can expect to get for their home a block, 2 blocks away, even, because again, it's a hyper local market. So I believe that here in the Mid Atlantic, especially, we will continue to see normalized, normalized housing market because of our proximity to DC, Philadelphia, and New York City. Other places in the country, may realize some oversaturation, but I don't see any tremendous decrease in purchases. Nothing approaching 2008, at least not for this year.
All right.
Let me
Well,
say one quick thing. I was going to start doing this. I want to just recommend a book for
yeah.
your audience.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to do this briefly every time we get together. And this book is called Gold by Nathan Lewis. And it goes into the history of currencies and money. And I think people would do well to read this. It's very interesting, especially if you like history and if you like money.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yes, and I'm always looking for a new book to read, especially something that can make me more informed about my money and just how it works. So thank you so much for that. Again, we can find you on YouTube and on Facebook at Money Changes Everything. You are a wealth of knowledge. We have Tyrone Keys here every Wednesday, not every Wednesday, the last Wednesday of every month. So check us out with him. He always is full of good information about money.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. So again, that was Tyrone Keys. Please continue to comment throughout the show. Join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And again, don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. All right, so we are moving right along. So everybody has been talking about Sunday night's Oscars. Everyone. It's been all over the news, all over social. So if you've been hiding under a rock, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars over a joke he made about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. He went on to win the Oscar for Best Actor for his portrayal of Venus and Serena Williams' dad in the movie King Richard. It's been all over the news, so I'm sure you all have heard about it. So, ladies, I want to get your first reactions on what happened. I'll start with you, Shelly. What are your reactions? What do you think about all of this?
Whew, I have a lot to say, but I'm going to start by saying Will's ass should have been arrested and removed from that auditorium.
All right. What about you, Yana? The slap heard around the world.
Well, what I saw is that Will was laughing until he looked at Jada and she didn't like the joke and then he got angry. So I think he has a lot of bottled up anger and frustration, and he just let it out on Chris.
All right. Colleen, we've been playing Goodwill slapping for the past 3 days. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm going to go a different route with this. I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat and I'm going to say that it was probably a setup for ratings.
Okay. All right. Well, what I want to know is, are we at a time in society where feelings dictate how we function? And if so, is this snowflake culture sustainable? What do you guys think about that?
Well, we've been there for a number of years now. We've been there where we have all these safe spaces in colleges, and everybody has to, be careful what you say and how you say it because, your words can really, really damage someone. And so we have to be on these eggshells for the most part. But being slapped at the Oscars like Will Smith did to Chris Rock was, to me, it was another display writ large of black on black. People have said this black on black crime. And guess what? Just like we have in our communities today, not a thing was done.
Mm-hmm. Well, first I want to ask each of you, and I'll start with you, Yana. If it were you, if you were actually offended by what Chris Rock said, would you have wanted your significant other to go up and slap him on stage?
No. I mean, that's just inappropriate. And like the thing is that if you go to a comedy club, like, or they know that there's going to be a comedian, that's what comedians do. Like they'll pick on people in the audience. Like it's a common practice, and you're not always going to like the joke. So what you can do, I mean, if you're really offended, you can walk away. And if it's something, if you're famous, maybe you can write about it, maybe you can express your frustration in a more civilized way. So no, I think going up that's just petty and just it's so like reactive and silly to do that. It's like you can't respond. In fact, I think Chris was expecting Will to say something. He didn't expect to be slapped, in my opinion. He was saying maybe he was gonna say something or say something witty back to him, but no, it was very ridiculous way to respond to words with physical violence.
Mm-hmm. And some people have been really hard on Jada Pinkett Smith. So, people have been saying that this actually didn't stem from this particular incident, that it actually is something that has been built up in Will Smith due to their very public marital problems. Are are we seeing, Jada Pinkett Smith is someone that women have kind of looked up. She is the poster child for independent woman. She's this new age woman that's been married. They've been married for some time, and she has come off as very independent. She's very progressive. And we have this progressive push against conventional relationships because they have a very unconventional relationships. But do they really work? Is this the reason why we're here today with this SLAP? I want to get your thoughts on this, Colleen.
Well, I will say that there seems to be a culture of, I found out so and so's cheating on me, I'm going to go and commit violence on that person, or that any kind of violence for it's almost like he's like overcompensating for their crappy relationship. You know what I mean? Because they've sold this lie that they have this great open relationship, and I think that lie kind of fell apart last year when she really had him on the show and was like really just making them air out all their dirty laundry. And I mean, I think that really took a toll on Will. I think that kind of ruined his manhood a little bit there. But like I said, I do kind of think this might have been a setup a little bit, only because it was like the second worst rated Grammys or whatever, the Oscars it is. And I mean, it was probably only second because of this incident. You know what I mean? People probably went and watched it because of this happening. I mean, it probably would have been the worst. So I don't know. There's so much to unpack here, but their relationship is a mess.
Yeah, it is.
I feel bad for Will, really. Like I had to look into it recently and watch that Red Table Talk, and it was hard to watch, really. She didn't seem like there was any problem. She doesn't feel like she has any responsibility in their marital problems.
And she's rubbed off on the kids. You know,
absolutely.
like Willow.
I want to jump in here so badly.
Go ahead, Shelly.
Go ahead,
I
Shelly.
want to jump in here so badly. Okay, let me go on the record to say I am no fan of Jada Pinkett Smith. Okay, but I think as conservatives, it is so hypocritical at best, maybe, or at worst, to blame her for his actions. Yes, they have publicly made their relationship public to make you want to vomit, right? We consume it, of course, right? They are these celebrities, but to blame her for his actions, I'm not saying that. I think he should not have taken his ass on that red table. Now he needs a red couch. So in some psychiatrist's office. But that time that he was on her show or whatever, it was awful. Whatever problems they had, they should have worked them out in some, again, maybe on a red couch. But to blame her for his actions is so hypocritical to me.
I don't blame him for slapping. I don't blame her for Will slapping Chris. I blame her for Will losing his mind in general. Or I blame actually him for staying with her this whole time. I mean, it's amazing that he's been with her. I don't understand what he sees in her. She looks like a teenage boy. She is, I mean.
Oh my God.
What is it about her that keeps him with her? And I mean, and in fact, during that table talk, he even said, "I was done with you." That's when they were describing that, what was happening when she started seeing that young guy, August, who was like her son's age. And he and Will actually didn't want to be with her at that moment. That should have been the time when he left. But then he stayed with her even after she basically took advantage of this young boy at that time.
Yeah, well, she's certainly not a victim. And I don't know about blaming her, but in marriage, when one spouse does something, it is reflective off of the other. So we saw what happened there. We saw her give the look. Initially Will was laughing along with everyone else when Chris made the joke. She gives this look, and then he's walking down the stage. So she is certainly not blameless. I wouldn't even call her a victim. I would actually call her a predator. She's a predator because she went around and everything she touches turns, for lack of a better word, shit. if anyone who saw August Alsina's interview, he and Will looked exactly the same. They looked like emotional they were a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wait a minute. Why is that hurtful? Why is that hurtful? I'm not saying, no, I'm talking about how they look or whatever. Isn't Will Smith, he has the funds, the access, the all the means to take care of his own mental health. So I'm not saying, again, when you're married, of course, there two, whatever you do, like you said, is reflective on each other, but there's still an individual accountability for your own health. Sometimes you need to say I'm done. Sometimes you need to say I'm done.
I mean, if we talk about, let's say, if somebody was abusive to their wife in either emotional or physical way, we would talk about it. But, you know, it's just, we've been noticing that it seems to us that she might be the emotional abuser in the relationship.
Yes,
no, it usually takes two. It usually takes two, and what we don't know.
So you're blaming.
So if he is
I mean, would you blame a woman if she was a victim of an emotional abuse?
There's a part that plays. These dynamics go on. So I'm not saying that
victim is
I'm
not
not saying
blameless.
that I'm not saying that a woman should be abused. I would still blame the abuser, but that doesn't mean that there's no there's no part that he has to play for his own mental health.
Absolutely, his part is to leave. But you know, as we know, sometimes or many times, the people who are being abused in some way, a lot of times they don't leave for some reason for a long time.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean, look at this. People, you know, we continue. Society goes to Hollywood for this, their reasoning behind, you know, things, not just entertainment now, but you know, she is a huge icon for women. You know, their marriage has been praised in movies and magazines, and it's not a good look. They are not a couple to hold up on a pedestal. You know, they've been flaunting this open marriage for I don't know how long, and you can see it doesn't work.
And it was her idea too to have an open marriage.
Yeah, it was her idea. He goes on. I had a quote here in an interview where he says, "I don't suggest our road for anybody. I don't suggest this road." But the experiences, that the freedoms that we've given one another and the unconditional support, to me, is the highest definition of love.
Mr. Houston, do you think for yourself?
No.
They continue to push this untraditional types of they continue to throw away and cast down traditional concepts. And this is what I think hasn't been talked about all week, is that we have this woman, and when you think of Jada, I mean, she is this independent Black woman, even though she's married. She walks around like she's got, you know, she's cock of the walk. She's cut her hair. So, and she came out with a video where she was saying that she didn't even care. She liked her hair cut like that. So, you know, but she hasn't said anything about this since he slapped Chris Rock. She put one thing out. She said, "This is a season of healing." She did that after the August Alsina thing too, and his healing was a mess. If you see the video, if you see the first interview he did when he addressed the entanglement, the affair that she had with him. So, you know, this whole new age crap doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And look at her son. I mean, he looks like her.
And the daughter looks like Will. I'm not saying that,
but I'm saying he wears dresses and he's like, you know, he looks confused. So he doesn't have a male role model in the family when Will is just following what Jada says.
I think Will had a mental breakdown. And let me say this: that joke that Chris Rock made. If she was so independent and whatever other word you want to describe, I think what she should have done was said, "Hey, show me the contract. I will gladly do a GI2 movie or remake."
Yeah.
Demi Moore, Sigourney Weaver, Sinead O'Connor. These are successful women who cut their hair for their roles.
It was an empowering joke, actually.
I mean, I would have taken it the other way. I don't see why she should have gotten upset from it. You know, that's just, again, that's part of her persona that I definitely don't like. But I'm also going to add, they have been publicly putting their information out in the public. And guess what? We are consuming it. I'm saying we collectively, we're consuming it. We live and breathe and die. So guess what? That's like a vicious cycle. We are paying for the crap that they put out.
Yeah, but who cares? They're getting paid too. If you look at Chris Rock, he has a comedy show coming out April 1st. I think the first stop is Boston. He's already doubled his tickets. This is what it is about being a public figure, a celebrity. It comes along with the territory. And this is why it was so crazy that he got up on that stage and slapped Chris Rock. And I don't think it had any, honestly, I don't think it had anything to do with that night. I don't think it had anything to do with Jada's hair. I think that because he said something and put the spotlight on them, they were triggered. It didn't have, whether they were talking about an entanglement, whether they were talking about her bald head, whatever. They were put in the spotlight. And I think he was tired of being made a fool of. He's been the joke of everyone for the past 2 to 3 years. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, the way that the media is spinning it is interesting too, because they're like trying to, it's just another violent, the mostly peaceful protest type thing where they're trying to justify why it's okay what Will did. They've added, I've seen articles where they've made this into a racist incident, even though there were no white people involved, because he humiliated Jada in front of her white peers. I've seen articles about that. I've seen so many twists on this incident that are trying to basically excuse this Hollywood creepy family. I mean, they're literally the poster family for weirdness of Hollywood. Like, I mean, Willow, Jaden, all of them, they're completely exactly what Hollywood is selling. So they're like trying to make everybody feel bad for thinking that Will's a bad person for doing this and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I just think that the way that the media has spun this has been really probably the weirdest part.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I agree. The media, you've had celebrities come out and give their opinions on the situation. And we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
The only one who has spoken out about it is Chris Rock brothers. So this week, Chris Rock's younger brother, Tony Rock, came out and he said that he was not happy about it. He said he didn't accept the apology pretty much. And they were upset. So, and the younger brother said something similar along the similar lines. So we don't know what Chris Rock is thinking about it. Jada Pinkett Smith hasn't spoken about it. I mean, now Will did come out and apologize. He didn't apologize initially to Chris Rock, but he apologized for embarrassing everyone at the Oscars.
I can't wait for her next Red Table Talk. I am so excited for it.
They need a red couch.
Yeah, right.
They need to get rid of that thing.
Because she's going to talk. She's going to probably spill way more info than's needed. So I'm totally bringing the popcorn. Like, I can't wait for it.
Well, they need not to be in the public right now. They need to, whatever, counseling, again, red couches for that whole family. I think Chris Rock should press charges. Really, I do, because I think this needs to be made a level of accountability. I really think he needs to press charges, because we see this kind of behavior in our daily lives, let alone at this height of academy, whatever. But this needs to be prosecuted, or certainly he needs to press charges, and he definitely does.
He pressed charges? He wasn't hurt.
Because I think this is part of the double standard that I've been seeing. Had this been, you or me or somebody, regular Joe Schmo, first of all, we would have been wrestled down probably by security, removed from the facility, and there will be charges. I think the Oscars, the Academy dropped the ball. They didn't protect Chris. They certainly didn't protect their audience. They should have removed him. There are reports coming out that he was asked to leave and he refused to. What? Oh. Yeah, I just saw that about an hour ago.
Yeah, I saw that, but then they gave him an award. So, I mean, obviously they didn't ask him.
He was rewarded for bad behavior. Come on.
No, I don't believe that he should have lost his award.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying if they asked him to leave, then did they proceed with the award ceremony anyway when he said, I'm not leaving?
Yeah. I think he does need to sue him.
Yeah.
He's not going to sue because they know the backlash he would get from that would be far worse than any amount of money he would get. That would
Well,
he
I
would
don't-
they'll need
of
extra
course he doesn't need
security
the money.
on the stage next time, I guess.
right.
They'll need security guards literally like standing by the comedian just in case somebody walks up there.
Yeah, but it's not I don't think it's a good marketing brand for him to sue. That's
Oh, I do.
And I'm worried about the spins on the media's part that are trying to say that this is okay, because what that's doing is furthering the narrative that it's okay if somebody offends you, you're allowed to lay hands on them.
Mhm.
And we know what path that brings us down, the mostly peaceful protests. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's my concern about it, is when the media is trying to say, no, if somebody offends you, you can absolutely go up in front of a room of people and slap them across the face. Why? Why not? You know, it's like, and then they said ableism. They said alopecia provided her ableism. That's not a disability. So I mean, it's really interesting the way that the media is trying to take up for it. So it's concerning, in my opinion. It's very concerning when they
It
try
is
to,
like war on comedy. I mean, that's been going on already. Actually, how you can't joke about this or that, you can't joke about race, you can't joke about gender, and eventually we can't say anything. So exactly. So it's like a war on the art of comedy.
Not just that, but anything. We've become this society where you cannot speak about anything. You can't speak about it. You can't write about it. If you offend anyone in any way, you're canceled. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And it's always like they'll always bring it back to, oh, it's because you're punching down. And it's like, but Jada's not punching down. Jada's like a multimillionaire. Like, she's an elite. So it's not punching down to make fun of a celebrity. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So like,
I said last year, damsels in distress cause a whole lot of stress.
Yeah.
And that's what he was rescuing. I guess he thought maybe to some degree he was rescuing his damsel in distress.
And she's supposed to be independent.
Look at the fallout.
She's so independent. Why didn't she do it herself? I mean,
it's not about anyone. It's not about her being rescued. It's about him feeling like he's been the brunt of everyone's joke for the past 2 years.
Yeah, I can see that.
He knows goodness well he doesn't have to rescue her. She looked like she can pretty much take care of herself. And she said that on multiple occasions. It had nothing to do with him rescuing or defending Jada Pinkett Smith. And his whole speech, his Oscar speech, where he said, he was defending, he had to defend the actresses on the set, and it was a crock. It was a crock. He was defending one person, himself. He was trying to defend his manhood in some way, because he has been made a fool of, a pure fool for the last 2 years. And guess who did it? His wife. This is why we blame her. She emasculated him and made a pure fool.
And Will participated in it.
Yeah, they should break up.
He participated in his own demise.
Yeah.
Like Yana said, he didn't leave. He sat down at that red table and whatever else he did it. Nobody forced him to.
She was gonna say. He asked her. He said, "What did you do, Jada?" Who knew she was going to say?
But I don't think he should have been there at all. He should have kept his butt off of the table.
But who knew?
So he participated in it.
Who would expect your spouse to say, "I cheated because he made me feel good"?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what he expected, but he shouldn't have been there. He didn't have to go. I'm not saying she was right. I'm not saying he should have kept his butt off.
For her to finally acknowledge what she did. They had no.
They didn't have to do it on public. They didn't have to do it in public.
They did, because August Alsina came out and made.
They still didn't have to respond in public. They didn't have to respond in public.
This is the social media news environment that we live in.
It's the new age. It's the new age movement that has brought this on. That the woman is the queen, and she it's her choice, that she should have choice like this. And it's this whole that you shouldn't blame people for, it's just love, she was just
Her
feeling
show
a certain
sells lies. It sells
and
lies. It's literally like fake empowerment, because the second somebody made a joke about G.I. Jane, she couldn't take it for a second.
Right.
It's like, honestly, if she really preached, like, if she really believed all that crap she preaches on her show, she would have
Right.
laughed at that joke. I would have laughed at that
Exactly.
joke.
Mhm,
I would have
mhm.
laughed at that joke for sure.
Yeah, so she doesn't that doesn't make her look
She
strong
doesn't
either
have to do
if
all
she
that.
gets so offended by a joke. And also it still bothers me that she took advantage of someone who's like half her age when he was like sick. He had like a physical problem and a mental problem, and
And a
he was
drug problem.
in
He
the
was
drug,
addicted
and
to
she was
drugs.
healing him.
He was mentally unstable. Anybody and their mother can see that on the interview that he did. Boy is mentally unstable. He still is. And guess what he said? She drove him to suicide. He was almost going to end his life after that relationship. And she out here telling people this is a season of healing.
I can't.
But I have a question before we go off this topic.
Sure.
And I still can't wrap my mind around it. Why did who was it? Denzel, Tyler Perry, and who I forget the other guy's name. Why did they all rally around him? Nobody went to Chris Rock. What? I'm trying to process that.
Maybe because
what most people would do.
Maybe because he was crying. Will was
Will Smith, you
crying.
mean?
He was people. Let me tell you something. People can see when someone is having a mental break.
Well, I said he was having a mental breakdown.
They saw he was having a mental break, and they wanted to stop it. They were trying to just stop it. That's why they went to him. Chris Rock was okay,
No.
and I'm sure someone went to him too. But this guy had a mental break, and they didn't know what he was going to do next.
They had medical personnel in that audience in that auditorium.
A lot of times, men like that, even though he's an emotional man, need to see a peer. They need to see somebody that has a little bit of strength and a little bit of steadiness.
Yeah, that was all for show. I
don't know about that. I mean, I think they went to him to really try.
The show must go on, and it did.
It did. It did go on. So, again, we will continue to follow this story. I have a funny feeling Chris Rock is going to have a hilarious comic set on this. I do. I think that's where he's going. He has not commented on this situation, and I think he's going to talk about it in his comedy. I may be wrong, but I think so. And if he does, so. Good for him. I hope he roasts them.
I hope he makes so much more money.
Yes. Yep. I hope he roasts her. Call every bald-headed thing in the book because she's bald. So. But I could lose my hair too.
God punishes people for things, so you never know.
The whole thing.
Why it happened to her.
Yeah, we'll continue to talk about it. But the real issue here is this new age marriage bull crap doesn't work. It doesn't. And I know it doesn't. It doesn't work. And we'll go into that, in the next segment. But again, join the conversation. You guys have been commenting throughout this segment. Continue, please. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. Don't just comment, subscribe to our social media so you know when we post new content. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, so we are moving right along to our pop-off round. This is our pop-off rapid-fire round. So I need each of you hosts to pop off on this trending topic and provide your reaction in 30 seconds or less. Let's go. So we're starting off with you, Yana, tonight.
Okay.
Our goal, I want to read this quote to you. It says, our goal as a company is for this law, this is Disney talking about what they call Don't Say Gay bill, to be repealed by the legislature or struck down in the courts. And we remain committed to supporting the national and state organizations working to achieve that. We are dedicated to standing up for the rights and safety of LGBTQ plus --, members of the Disney family, as well as the LGBTQ plus thumbs up smiley face, exclamation point, comma, community in Florida and across the country. So my question to you is, should corporations lobby the government in this way? And what does this say about the direction of Disney's child programming, if anything? This is a comment Disney made about the bill passed in Florida that says you cannot talk about sexual education to kids in grades, I believe, lower than third or third and lower. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think there are a bunch of groomers and pedophiles who are running Disney, obviously. And I heard that they're about to uh, add more programming that includes, I guess, education about LGBTQ plus things to children. So first of all, the bill itself doesn't talk anything about homosexuality or being gay. It basically prevents teachers teaching about sexuality in general to young children up to third grade, and that's very normal. So I think these people just want to groom children, and they are, oh, they're deranged, completely deranged. And I think that people should just not use Disney anymore.
All right. All right, moving along to you, Shelly. So, an iDiva article states women don't need men to complete them. It details how women are a sizable chunk of the workforce and women are a few steps ahead in education too. According to a study published in 2010, for every 2 men that graduate, there are 3 women who do the same. So, my question to you, Shelly, is the old age adage no longer true? Do women need men to complete them in an ideal situation?
That's interesting. Because I'm saying we collectively, we have taught our girls and boys that even before you get married, you should know who you are, and you should be, secure, or whatever that means, in yourself. So in that sense, and that we've also taught our young people that you shouldn't necessarily need another person. Now, that does not mean that 2 people should not be married, or marriage is not something that's honorable and to seek after. But we give mixed messages. I think that's the problem. I think we give mixed messages to young people about dating and marriage. We give mixed messages to young people about, get your career first and your education before you get married. So I think there's just confusion all around. I think women are confused. I think men are confused. And we're certainly confusing our children.
All right. And then, so in your opinion, do women need men to complete them?
I think 2 are better than 1.
To what?
2 people, a man and a woman married, are better than 1 being single.
Well, not married. Whatever. Do you think women need a man to complete them?
Now, I wouldn't say to complete them as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you should be a whole. You're as best as you can be before, I'm saying, marriage. But I don't negate that 2 are better than 1. Just, marriage, dating, that's a necessary for society as well.
All right. Colleen, moving on to you. So, the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot has in its possession more than 24 text messages, 29 in total, between former Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Virginia Ginny Thomas, a conservative activist and the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, according to multiple sources familiar with the messages. These text messages, according to sources, took place between early November 2020 and mid-January 2021. Thomas recently revealed that she attended the pro-Trump rally that preceded the U.S. Capitol attack on January 6th. But she says she played no role in planning the events of that day. The text messages reviewed by CNN show Thomas, that's Clarence Thomas's wife, pleading with Meadows to continue the fight to overturn the election results. So my question to you is, should Justice Thomas recuse himself of future Capitol riot cases in light of his wife's involvement? Why or why not?
Absolutely not. I think this is another witch hunt. I think that, what do those text messages even say? What are you eating for lunch today? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, my gosh. And then just like when they were exposing text messages that came out from like Fox News contributors to people in the White House on January 6th. And when then they released it, it was just like, oh my gosh, please stop this. It was like completely unincriminating stuff. It's just another witch hunt. Makes me sick.
All right. Again, join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you know when we post new content. Do you have a question that you'd like to hear answered by one of the hosts? We're having an actual contest. So what I want to do is we will ask the co-host your question during our next pop-off round. So the challenge is this. Here it is. Yes. We're having a pop-off challenge comment. So you will comment on this video, share this video, and send a question to me at kj@metroconservativemedia.com. If you're commenting from YouTube, include your screen name. You get this book. This is what you would get. If we choose your comment for our next pop-off, you would get this book, Just Being There by Terrace Todd. It is a great book about parenting. And in this day and age, we all need that. So again, if you have a pop-off question, please email me, kj@metroconservativemedia. What you would do, you have to make sure you do all these things. You need to comment on this video, share this video, and send me your question for our next pop-off. Again, if you're commenting from YouTube, include your screen name. All right. So looking forward to those questions. Okay, we are on to topic number 2. So we've gone from defend women to believe all women to men straight to Supreme Court nominee unable to define a woman. Maybe she should go to a pro-choice rally and see all the pussy hats to help her figure out what a woman is. I don't know. But my question tonight is, what is a woman and what is her lane? So I want to start off to you, Shelly. What is a woman and what is her lane? What is her role?
So let's see. I always start with biology first. So I think that's probably the easiest thing to define. Of course, we know the biological differences between men and women, but answering her lane has more to do with gender roles. And gender roles can and do and have changed in our society, particularly since the 1920s, 50s, and to today. So gender roles can change, and it also depends on. Part of the gender roles changing also depends on what society expects, maybe your religious beliefs, family values, things like that. So it's like a two-way street, and I think this is where the confusion lies.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Colleen? What is a woman and what is her role? What is her lane?
So I'd say a woman is a biological female, and that cannot be changed. So that's what I'll say there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And Yana, what is a woman and what is her lane?
Well, I mean, I have to agree with everybody else here. What is a woman? Normal people, we never had a problem actually defining what a woman is until we started to celebrate a mental illness. And it's unfortunate. People who cannot define what they are, they need help. Like, I don't have necessarily, we don't have to hate these people who are confused about. In fact, I feel like they need help, like they need guidance.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to something Shelly said. You said, Shelly, about gender roles. So gender roles have changed over time, and I believe you said something similar. They're based on the culture, the way the culture changes, gender role changes. Can you give me an example of what you're talking about there as far as how have gender roles changed?
Okay, so I guess the classic example I would say is that historically women were caretakers of the home. Women worked in the home, and if you want to add in the bedroom, that was the place or the lane of a woman, right? The house, the home, the kitchen, and the bedroom, and taking care of the children. Well, we have seen when women left the home to find their primary place of work, this is a lot of this started. The role started changing. You know, women can be Rosie the Riveter, and they can be this and do this. And again, military. I'm a veteran, so all these roles, but it does not negate me being a woman. So this is where the confusion comes in.
Right. And so we can talk about generalizations, for discussion purposes, but what is the ideal? I mean, shouldn't we be working towards the ideal and then of what the role should be and what works best for women, depending on, for families? I guess we're talking about families here. So what would be the ideal as far as that? What works? We were talking about Jada Pinkett Smith and Will this earlier in the conversation, and they have this open marriage. I, for one, don't believe open marriages work.
Right.
In the long run, in general, I don't believe they work. So, here we are at roles of women. Now, we know traditionally women, were in the home, rearing the families and not so much in the workforce, if not in the workforce at all. Should we go back to that? What works in most cases that you guys believe?
So, first of all, I want to say that I agree with Shelly that women, I mean, obviously can choose whatever role they want to have. And actually, the people who are, let's say, transgender women, they're actually wearing a woman's costume because they are defining for themselves what a woman is when they actually cannot really define it. It's like a weird thing. So it's like a woman is not necessarily the one that is feminine. I mean, it's not always like that. However, like, to answer KJ's question, like what works best, I mean, I think you have to look at society and what works best for the family. So if the woman wants to have a family, it is probably better to be at home more than less. I mean, it's if she wants to have children. Of course, now a woman as an individual can choose not to have children, so then maybe she can be pretty much equal in her time, whatever time she spends with her husband. But also what's best for a relationship too. I mean, it's not good for either party to be away from home for too long. So like you have to think a little bit more collectively, I think, in order for society to work. I mean, individual choices are important, but then you have to think a little bit more collectively and what works best for the family and for the society as a whole.
Okay. And you mentioned something about just the collective. And again, I have to go back to this progressive push against anything traditional, anything that has any structure. And, I was thinking about this today. I don't believe that their aim is to push for Black people or women. Because, we used to have women rights, used to be front and center. Now we can't define a woman. There used to be a push, for now there's a push against traditional gender roles. I believe what the answer to all this is, it's their agenda is to push anything that is radical at that time. So right now, the radical thing is to push against gender roles and to push this transgenderism. And so they do this in order to break the system or structure we have in place to bring about chaos and then eventually the Great Reset. What are your thoughts on that? I don't believe this whole progressive. I mean, I think you have everyday progressives who, do have causes that they believe in, but I don't think the actual real agenda is any of this. It's just to go against whatever is traditional, whatever is structure, to bring about chaos. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Chaos is the end goal. Even if they didn't think it was, that's what it will be. And when we talk about women's lanes, I don't know who asked the question. Well, are we going to go back to that? See, I think I'm being practical. As women today in 2022, all these modern women, what we call ourselves, or however we want to define it, are we willing to give up all the whatever we have accomplished to go back to, quote unquote, the way it was? Are we willing? Do we want to do that? Do we want to stay home and only raise our children and take care of the home? And I'm not poo-pooing that. I think that's an honorable thing to do. But I don't think many of us, even on this call, even though we call ourselves conservatives, would be willing to do that, or that we would do that at all.
I would, but let me tell you though, the problem is, I mean, one of the main reasons that I don't have children now, among other reasons, is because the times have changed so much, but so has inflation. So nobody can support a family with a wife and multiple kids on one income anymore. And I think, like, how many percent of men even make over like $100,000 a year? I mean, and it costs so much money to raise children now. So it's like, even if we wanted to live this woman's traditional role, the dollar really doesn't get you far anymore. So the women are almost forced to work as well. I mean, as much as I would love to raise 2 children and stuff like that, that's probably not going to be in our future. So
Yeah,
and just because the dollar
I
doesn't go
agree.
far enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it depends on what works. I mean, you have to ask yourself, and we all, we sit here every week and we complain about this progressive agenda that's infiltrating every part of society. It's not just education, it's, just social environment, everything they've invaded and they've ruined it. And so you have to think, so would a traditional lifestyle work better for a family? So I know multiple moms who don't work and they're not living a fabulous lifestyle or anything like that. They live a simple way of life. Now they do work small, they may still work, but it's certainly not any large portion of the household income.
Right.
And so
I don't think we have the structure for traditional lifestyle right now, because traditionally, and I think that's why like you were saying, this progressive movement and the people, I guess, in the higher ups, like they do not want to see strong families, because a family is actually a threat to the the government, because traditionally families can grow into clans and can have power, and that's where the collective approach that I've been talking about, that we kind of lost in this country. And maybe we have to think about it, because prior, like in the past, it's not just a family, it's more like the extended family. They were all connected and together, and they were helping each other. And like Colleen was saying, it's so expensive to raise children, but because we don't have support from anybody else, we're so disjointed. And in the past, like, we had grandparents and uncles and aunts, people were like putting their resources together to keep the family strong. And
Right.
so that's what we need to get back to, and not keep relying on the government to help us, and stop listening to them that we have to become all these super independent. And independence is good, like the independence of your mind, but we still have to understand that we need each other.
I want to go to some of the comments here. We have Republicans reprisal. She says, I'm a conservative Black woman and I stay home with my children and work part-time from home while my husband works outside the home. Okay, so and again, I think too, we may all just be in a situation, we're in the DMV area, and this area is far different than other areas, we're living more suburb or down south or things like that. So it just may be about perspective. We have Stephen, who says, it's funny how women stop listening to man at home to listen to men at work. What do you guys think about that?
Can I share a personal story? Maybe a personal story on this line. I remember when my daughter was young, I literally, for about a year, I was still working part-time and going, and then it dawned on me, I wanted to be there because she was about to start school. I wanted to be the one to take her to school, pick her up, or her father, my husband. I wanted to do that. And so I literally, from my house, I talked to my husband like throughout that year. I said, by the end of the year, I'm resigning. And I had worked at this particular job. I had become manager. So I don't know what you call it. Tenure. Tenure, yes. But you know what I did? I remember it was December. I faxed over my resignation, faxed it over, and I went to lay on the couch and I had a nap and I felt like peace had just like overcome me. It was the best decision I made because I was able to, again, take my daughter to school. And now during that year, I was working a little part-time job here, there, whatever. We're not rich, we're not wealthy, but it was important for me to be there to take my daughter to school, because going to work and worrying about, who's going to pick her up? Are they going to be there in time? I wanted to be that person.
Does that make you a woman?
Does that make me a woman? Right. It made me a better mother, and women are the only ones who can be mothers. So yeah, I guess.
All right, because it's just like people are just having such a hard time defining women. What is a woman to you, Colleen?
Well, I think that also, gosh, what is a woman? I hate that question so much, but like one of my favorite podcasters, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire, constantly brings up that question. He's making a whole, documentary about it and stuff. I mean, but it's hilarious because it actually really offends people to ask that question now.
Do you get offended? Are you offended when we have people who are claiming that they are a woman?
Yes, I am very offended by like Leah Thomas, especially as a former athlete, like college athlete, all that, like that bothers the crap out of me. And let me tell you, it's not hard to be brave today. Honestly, it's really not. Like I would kill to be on Leah Thomas's swimming team right now, just so I could be like, I'll say something, you know what I mean? Because what those girls are all so scared of, but they also don't realize that there's a lot of conservatives waiting to hire them, waiting for somebody to step out and say, this is crazy, I don't like this. But all of them anonymously speak to, newspapers and stuff. If one of them would just come forward and be like, this is crazy, I don't care, then the rest of them would feel a little more inclined to say how they really feel. The majority of them are not happy. So if people would just be brave by just saying the truth today, I mean, imagine what bravery actually entailed during our grandparents' time. You know what I'm saying? Like real bravery. Now just saying, I think a woman is a biological woman, it makes you a hero, It's like.
But is it Leah Thomas's fault? Do you guys think it's?
I think Leah Thomas is an opportunist. I don't truly believe Leah Thomas has gender dysphoria. I would tell anybody that. I truly don't believe Leah Thomas has gender dysphoria. And I'll call him Leah because you can legally change your name. I'll call you whatever you want to legally change your name to, sure. And sometimes I will say she by mistake or something like that, but you will not convince me that that person has gender dysphoria after competing as a man for all those years. I'm not buying it.
What about you? Yana? Do you believe Leah Thomas is at fault? Do you fault?
Yes, I mean, I couldn't even look at it. Like any news article about it or video, I can't even watch it. It's disgusting. I can't look at this person. It's gross. I avoid it. Like it irks me.
And they'll call you transphobic for saying these things.
It's a dude. It's a dude who is taking over women's spaces. There are some feminists who are speaking out, but it's not enough. Yeah. Like how women have been fighting for their rights for so long, and now we have a man taking a woman's award for in swimming.
And And
Terrible.
when we can't define what a woman is, so that makes it so much easier for predators to suddenly identify as women because
Mhm.
they feel like it today. So I saw an interview somewhere, somebody had mentioned how it's so dangerous because we're essentially teaching children to believe what a predator thinks over their own intuition. Well,
Mhm.
he says he's a woman, so it must not be weird if he does this. You know what I'm saying? So this is just such a slippery slope. It's awful. I mean, Leah Thomas does not have gender dysphoria. You cannot
No,
convince
I
me
don't
of
think
it.
so either.
I don't believe it. It's an
Yeah.
opportunist.
Yeah, and like being, as you, KJ, you asked, what is a woman? I mean, woman is an adult human female, but there's also what is a good woman? What is a lady? You know, like that's what I think we should strive for as women, to be better women. So of course, anyone that we're all women, but like what are our responsibilities in the community? I think everyone, men as well, have to think about what their role is, what their responsibility, and what our responsibility is. So basically, what are our strengths, and what can we do? How can we use our strengths to better our environment?
But
Mhm.
there are some who argue that biology is what a woman is, but gender is not the same.
They're not. They're not. Gender is what you do, maybe what you do in society, what you present as in society. They're not the same, and this is part of the confusion. We keep using these words interchangeably, and they are not the same. Gender has to do with roles. Sex has to do with your biology.
And is
So
that
what's
just an
woman?
English
Is
language?
woman
Because I'm thinking like in like my first language is Russian. I can't think of another word. There was only one word for like your, you know, like who you are. Like
right? That's what I
who
want to
came
say.
up
So
with that?
is woman biology or is woman gender?
So, by woman is an adult female. Female is the biological aspect. So when you confuse gender, but when you add gender, it's what can a female do, or what role do you see a female in, or what roles can a female participate in society.
But that's just
Gender
roles. I mean, so a man can do a woman's role, basically.
and
So
a
it's
woman
just
can do a
playing a
man's role
woman.
in some
Yeah,
aspects. Yeah, in
just
some aspect. This
pretending
is
or
yeah.
playing a woman. So
Say
that
that again.
doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change your gender. You just
Right. It
choose to
doesn't change your sex.
behave. Well, no, I mean, what is really like? I guess I gotta look up the real definition because it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I mean, if you're a woman, sure, you can behave like a man. You're still a woman.
No,
Mm.
I agree with. This is where the confusion comes in. I agree with you.
Right. And I
Like
think
Mulan, for example, did she become a man like in that cartoon?
Mm,
Oh, that's a good question.
You know?
right.
But no, she was pretending to be a man.
Yeah. So, but she wasn't transgender.
Right.
Like I miss the days where we were like, oh, you're, a masculine female. Okay,
Right.
whatever, you do your thing. Now it's like, oh, you must
Like
want to be a
Jada
man.
Pinkett.
Yeah,
Jada
now they're
Pinkett
like,
is
you
a
should change.
masculine female.
Yeah, like that you should definitely just go all the way. It's like I miss the days when it was like you just you are who you are. Now it's like, oh no, you're probably meant to be a man, so we should
And
get
that's an insult to women because women can have different aspects of
it
herself. We
is.
can have a
Mhm.
masculine energy as
Yes.
well that
I
can be brought on in certain points in our lives. It doesn't
When
make
I
us a
grew up,
man.
when I grew up, we called the women who I guess portrayed themselves as men, we called them dykes, and then the men were called who portrayed themselves, we call them sissies, right?
I can't.
Everybody knew a sissy was a man acting like a woman, what we call effeminate, and everybody knew a dyke was a woman acting like a man. So I mean, again, I agree, it's all confusing, but they're not the same. And I think this is
So
where we
so you're saying then that it is okay for a transgender man. Well, no. So you're
I'm
saying
confused.
woman is not biology. Is that what you're saying?
No, a woman is an adult female. Yes, that's biology. But what she does in society, that goes into helping or defining her gender roles. When we say the roles or the lane, that's the part that people confuse with sex. That's why I say I just start with the biology. I start with the biology, and like Colleen said, if what's his name or her name, Leo Tom,
shouldn't the sex match the biology?
Shouldn't the what?
The sex match the biology?
It used to, very much so.
So exactly, I just looked up a definition, like the etymology, like where the word comes from. So it actually says that up until 1970s, in general, so gender was an identical meaning to sex. So gender meant sex. It actually says that, and then it changed.
Yep.
So it's really them changing the definition of words. That's
what
so
they
confusing.
do. That's what happens with a lot of things.
Same thing. Just because they're saying that it's not the same thing, it is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing to us, to society. They want to confuse us and to have us have these arguments, because they change the definition.
Well,
so,
I think
when we get into roles, this is the part that makes it a little tricky, because then we get into roles like the question was, what is the lane? So that means that women can only do or be in society X, Y, and Z, because this is what is defined as doing women's work. So this is where during the 60s, or maybe a little bit before, this is where all this stuff started getting very, very hazy.
Well, I mean, that's a person's choice, of course. And like I said before, it's what works better for everybody involved. So, and women have certain strengths and men have certain strengths. So why should we mix that up? I mean, of course, if there's a woman who's like super strong and she wants to do man's work, I mean, go ahead.
And what is man's work? I'm just saying, what is man's work? What is woman's work? This is part of the discussion that comes up.
Well, I can tell you, like, for example, I grew up in a village, and like women were not digging wells. Women were not tilling the land with a horse. We were not chopping wood. That we were not doing that. In fact,
but everybody doesn't live in a village now. I agree. I hear you. But again, women left the home to go largely to work in urban city areas. So then I'm just saying, this is where this started getting a little murky. Women did not only stay in the kitchen in the home. So now there were other avenues for women to pursue careers or whatever skills. So this is where I'm just saying, I'm not disagreeing with you in a sense. I'm just saying this is how it got murky.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I also say that the transgender movement is also very, I think it's a little bit more threatening to younger girls, and many of the detransitioners are girls, because I had a problem with this as well growing up, where I felt like I wasn't girly enough, or I wasn't feminine enough because I liked the things that boys liked. And if I grew up during this era, I probably would have ended up trans. They probably would have put it all in my head and been like, you're probably meant to be a guy. And they would have affirmed it. And I probably would have taken all the pills and then realized that this isn't exactly what I wanted. And by that time, there would have been a lot of damage. And sometimes they get their voices messed up because they take the testosterone, so they sound like men for the rest of their lives. And I mean, it's really damaging as a woman. It really ruins your womanhood, and it really ruins, like, just it can mess you up for life.
Yeah, and
just
very
like
sad. Yeah, it doesn't strengthen. Like, of course, like Shelly, you're saying, it's confusing now. What is a man's job or what is a woman's job? But generally speaking, those things still exist. Like, even if you live in the city, just because you live in the city, it doesn't mean there's certain things that are better for a man to do than for a woman. Like, if it's dangerous outside, like, it's better for a man to go out there and figure out what's going on, or like, walk you to your car, because if something happens, he is a better protector than another female. So there's certain jobs, many jobs that they're better for a man to do, like building bridges and climbing up there, and building things with concrete or whatever. There's still, it's not like we moved away so far. Of course, like there's certain things that women can also do that a man can do, absolutely, but men actually put the infrastructure together for us to be able to do those things.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I think a lot of times we make this stuff so complex when it's really simple. And in the complexity, you know how they say the devil is in the details. In the making it complex begins to kind of, That's what the progressive wants.
Mhm.
Because when you talk to these progressives, a lot of the initiatives and the principles that they have,
Gives you a headache.
practically it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't.
It doesn't make sense.
And they hide it in like just academia mumbo jumbo, so they make it sound like it's educated. And I'm just like, this is just nonsense. It's literal nonsense. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But because somebody from Harvard said it, it must be true.
Right.
You know?
Right. And people are falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. But we have to continue to push against it. We must. Because, and I'll say this again, I said it last week, I think this is destructive on many levels that we have not even begun to realize yet. It is destructive. This whole gender ideology, not only does it complicate things for children, but then relationships, the family, every part of our society, I think, can be affected by this. And I said it last week, I'll say it again. They want us to become androgynous. So once they take away this whole genders, then we become androgynous. Then we become open, open marriage. We become this communal society where you're sleeping with everybody. And I'm not just talking about humans, because once you become androgynous, you can sleep with animals. So you include bestiality in it. You become, open to children and pedophilia. This affects every part of our society. This is why I can't stand Jada Pinkett Smith. Don't tell me what this woman does. She's back. She's with August Alsina. He was only 20 something years old. Yes, he was an adult, but you could tell this man was mentally unstable, and she took advantage. And what does she do? She uses this new age mumbo jumbo. She was healing. She doesn't have any transgressions. This is part of the journey. It's stupid. And it's demonic. I'll say it's demonic. It's demonic. I think she's a little demon. And
just like we
now the demon is losing hair.
Say that again.
Now the demon is losing hair.
Oh yeah. Just like I said before, as consumer, I've been sick of hearing about Jada and Will, and I'm sick of it even this week.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think everyone is. So again, we will continue to follow the story. I'm really excited and anticipating to see what Chris Rock is going to do in his upcoming special on Saturday. So maybe in the news again.
Maybe she'll have him on Red Table Talk. Wouldn't that be great?
He would even have the goal to do it.
Wouldn't that be
have Chris Rock there?
He will need security if he goes there.
Exactly. Don't get the Oscars security because they're not going to protect them.
They get more viewership than the Oscars on that. So
yeah, well, I didn't even watch it. I didn't watch it until I saw people commenting on social media.
Yeah.
But, last question of the night for you ladies. Who's sexier after this incident? Chris Rock or Will Smith? I'll start with you, Colleen.
I'll go Chris Rock because he honestly, that took some guts to not retaliate. So
even though he was pimp slapped?
Yeah, I did feel so bad for him. I was like, poor guy.
What about you, Shelly?
Absolutely, Chris Rock, for his character, for his restraint. And let me add that not only did Chris Rock look sexier, Will Smith looked like a biatch.
What about you, Yana?
Definitely Chris Rock. He's funny. I like his jokes. And Will Smith, he had so much potential as a man, but he has failed recently.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'd say probably Jada. Jada looked the sexiest of them all, because she had the masculine energy, and she's the one who came out on top of all this.
That big head energy.
She came out on top on all of this. So again, we will continue to follow this story. Join the conversation again by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check we check the comments after the show, so we continue the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe so that way you get up to the minute content when we post, and we appreciate the support. We are an independent media, and each time you subscribe, it helps make our voice that much stronger. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, count your blessings and heal. Heal you again. Healing.
We're here for the healing.
As Jada Pinkett Smith would say.
We're here for the healing.
Yeah, and the journey. Bunch of crap. Live a life of purpose. Good night.